attracted you to this movie?
Oh man. Well, Keith reached out to my representatives, and they said, "Hey, this guy wants to talk to you." And I said, "Great, let's talk." And he told me about this project. He told me that he had seen me in Bomb City, and we ended up speaking for hours. And I knew that, you know, he really had a special spark. And as a storyteller and as a writer, he had real purpose and importance and gravity to the work that he was doing. So he shared the script with me, and from that moment on, I knew I had to be involved. The script is phenomenal. Keith is phenomenal. And I told him, I said, I'll do whatever it takes to make this movie the biggest success possible. And from that point out, I was a champion for it in any way I could be, as a performer, as whatever I could do.
So you do, you know, it's pretty much a solo effort that you're alone a lot. Is it hard as an actor to pretend to be alone when you're really not alone? You know, you're alone in a room. You know, I often wonder that. You know, acting, it's the most difficult person for me to interview as an actor because I don't know why. It just is. I've just always had trouble. But I wonder what it's like to pretend to be alone when you're not. Because,
you know, that's a really interesting question. In some ways, I feel like I'm never alone. You know, it's how do we achieve the truest form of ourselves, even when we're by ourselves, even when there's no one there to judge us or inhibit us? How can we really be who we are? And that's a question I'm always trying to answer in the form of just living life. And so as an actor, it's sort of an extension of that, you know, whether there's, well, when you're alone in a scene, you know, the camera's there, the people are there. And the same is true when you're with another actor. But when you're with another actor, you can disappear in that other actor. As Lynn Cohen, who was wonderful to work with and a co-star of The Vigil, told me on set many times, she would always say, "You're the most important person in this scene." She would say, "Whoever you are, the other person is the most important person in the scene." And so when you don't have that other person to listen to as an actor, which, you know, they'll say acting is reacting. The most important thing you can do as an actor is listen. So when you don't have that other person to disappear into in that conversation, in that dialogue, it becomes a matter of disappearing into yourself and listening to your own thoughts and listening to the clock tick. And, you know, you still have to ignore the camera and ignore the crew. That's always there. But the real thing is ignoring the demons inside and trying to exist, as we all do on a daily basis. So that's a very interesting question. But it was actually something I was really looking forward to as a challenge. You know, on one level, I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to remember any dialogue. This is great. I just get to be. On the other hand, all the dialogue I did learn was in another language, so I had my work cut out for me.
By the way, she was a scene stealer, and she was so creepy. I mean,
She's fantastic.
Yeah, she was. It was a really great piece of acting. But yeah, how hard was it? Because you had to learn another language. You're obviously not Jewish then.
I am Jewish, actually.
Okay, so
but I am not a Yiddish speaker. I am not a Hebrew speaker. It was, you know, this film, for those reasons, among numerous others, was the most difficult performance I've ever had the pleasure of undertaking. And I have never shied away from a challenge as a performer. So that was actually part of what drew me to the role. Was I realized how much work it would be, and I thought, I can do that. And what I do for every role I have is I create a notebook where I break down the performance essentially word by word. For this film in particular, for this character, it had to be written word by word because every breakdown I did also had to have a corresponding phonetic breakdown in another language. So as a result, at the end of the day, I end up with this big notebook with every scene broken down, every line broken down, so that on a given day, if we're told, hey, this is the scene we're working on, I'm able to immediately understand where I'm coming from, what I've experienced, what knowledge I possess at that given time. And so for Yakov, not only was that an extremely difficult journey just for character reasons, but it added a layer of complexity with the vocalization, with the dialect, with the language. And it was difficult and it was fun. It was exhilarating. I was working constantly. When we weren't filming, I was at home studying. It felt like my bar mitzvah all over again. I was like, I gotta get this done.
It was. I had a lot of fun with it. I like creepy movies. I mean, I like the dead body. The dead body was a good character too because you kept expecting it to do things it didn't do.
I know.
There's a lot of things that you expected that didn't happen, which
I know. That's my favorite.
I really liked because a lot of horror movies are really predictable. Da, 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 da. By the way, I guess my volume is pretty low, so I'm going to yell a lot here so I can.
That's all right. I can hear you. But yeah, I'm glad that you appreciated that because I felt the exact same way. And I think that the restraint that Keith showed in that is, to me, the scariest thing. It's, as Keith will tell you, his favorite part of a roller coaster is the.
Yeah.
And once you get the release, it's literally all downhill from there. So, I think the first time we had a shot set up with the body behind me, and he said, "You want to come take a look at what the shot is?" And he showed me. I was terrified, and I'd be sitting there expecting, I think a couple times on set, we were like, somebody's got to get on the body during lunch so that they can pop out and terrify everybody. But it was like, we had too much respect for it to do that. Nobody ended up ever doing it. But it was, the reason that was a funny joke is because we're all on set looking at this thing like move, do something. Did it move? Did it just move? Did somebody see it move?
Yeah, that gets creepy. I mean, it was the fun part of the movie to me again was the end, that it wasn't as predictable as a horror movie. I mean, this is kind of a horror movie that tends to be predictable. I've seen a million of them, where a person's alone in the room. My favorite is I just saw a horror movie the other day, and I'm not going to name it, where creepy things are going on in the house. So the woman's walking through the house. And never turns on the lights. Don't you turn on the lights?
Right.
In your case, the lights are blinking, but they don't turn on the lights. They always walk into the dark room without the light switch is right there by the door. Anyway, so I did like that part of the movie. I noticed two questions real quick before I talk about Lucifer. First question is, what'd you like about the character? What'd you like about it?
Yakov, he's a real person. He's dealing with things that everyone deals with, but he happens to be dealing with them in an exaggerated form because he's coming from an extremely intense community that exists in extremes. And so he's going through something I think everyone goes through: trauma. How do we deal with the community we come from? How do we confront ourselves in our relationship to faith? How do we confront ourselves in our relationship to faith and through the lens of our parents and the way that they look at the world and the way that they think? And Yaakov, even though he's struggling and even though he has suffered to limits that no one should suffer, he finds strength and he makes it through to the other side. He's an inspiration in that way. And so what I like about Yaakov is his awareness, he's an adventurer, honestly. The amount of courage, I like his courage, to put it simply. The amount of courage that it takes to start a new life because you feel that your old life is not benefiting you. I mean, that right there, you have to give up everything you know. You have to change everything.
Yeah.
And, that doesn't even get into the courage it takes to confront a demon.
Would you sit all night with a body? Would you do as a job what he did as a person? Would you spend the night with somebody who just died?
I think I would. Yeah. you know, one of the things I love about being an actor is I get to experience a lot of different things that many people never will or don't have the chance to. And I take that into my day-to-day life as well, because I sort of think, well, one day I might need to understand what this is like. So if I was given the opportunity to do that, I think, especially now knowing Yakov and knowing his experience, I would think I would understand how important that job is to someone who believes, even if the person that believes is the deceased, and if someone needed me to do that, of course I would say yes.
Yeah. So I'm at the last question here. Who inspired you to act? Who's your favorites? Do you have favorites? And who would you like to work with, given the opportunity? You're still kind of working your way up. And you were in Lucifer, and I had a friend who played the dead beekeeper in Lucifer. Uh,
Well, he's definitely at the top of my list. Your friend, the dead beekeeper, probably number one inspiration.
do anything, just laid there, But anyway, who inspired you? What makes you want to act?
Um, I have to say my dad, because he was such a fan of westerns and gangster movies, and It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart and Jimmy Cagney, and I grew up. He's so funny and animated, and he's such a good storyteller, and he loves films. So I would watch all these great old movies with him, and I saw how much my dad respected them and loved them, and I would think, why would anybody want to do anything else in the world where you could live all these different lives and be all these different people? And James Cagney was really a big inspiration because he is so tough, but he also could be so heartfelt. And then all of a sudden you put on Born on the 4th of July, and it's like he can tap dance, he can sing, he can do it all. And so, that was huge for me. And then I think I loved Great Balls of Fire when I was a kid, and not that Jerry Lee Lewis was an inspiration, but I would watch Dennis Quaid and go like, man, he's really playing piano. I want to learn how to play piano. I want to be able to do everything. And so,
So your father inspired you. His love of movies inspired you to become an actor.
Yeah.
Interesting to me, my mother's love of movies made me fall in love with movies, and I wound up as a movie critic as a result of my love for movies from I got from my mother, who was like your dad. She would make me sit down and watch Cagney movies and the Busby Berkeley stuff, which I really hated. This person was married to that person, this person did that. So I can really relate to your life that way.
But who I would really want to work with is who I've never worked with. One of my favorites is I'm so bad with names. Michael from Birdman.
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton's one of my favorites of all time. I just think he's got such a sense of fun and whimsy, and he's one of my favorites that I've never had the chance to work with yet.
Great actor. And I've been told that I've done my last question. Hey, Dave, I loved the movie. Loved your performance. I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you, Gary.
And other stuff down the road. And rock on.